Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. This is your Friday morning missions update. And today I'm privileged to have Wendy Burpee with us, the executive director at Genesis. And she's no stranger to us. She's been in our church several times. Her and her husband, Brad, are good friends of me and Becky's. And Brad actually is the vice principal at the middle school. So he's had to deal with my children. And he's about to deal with one more with Lauren. So we're excited that he's there. But this is all about Genesis and Wendy. So I want to just introduce you to Wendy Burpee. And so she's going to tell us her personal salvation testimony, and then she's going to tell us how she got involved with Genesis. So welcome, Wendy. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. So you want me to just get started?
Go for it. Yep.
All right. So actually, I was raised in a very conservative Christian background. I attended Calvary Baptist in Lansdale from kindergarten to 12th grade. So I'm no stranger to church and to the Christian walk. I really struggled in my later years in high school. Left for a private Christian college, a very strict college. And when I returned home on break, I met someone who, really provided me a lot of attention that I was kind of longing for. And so I went with that. I went with, that person that really I thought was going to fill the void in my life. It seemed easier to please him than it did to please my family and God. So I decided to take a little break from Christianity, and my parents kind of gave me an ultimatum. You gotta choose him or choose our family and God. And so I chose him. And that was really the beginning to a pathway of, a lot of pain and destruction in my life. So I did marry him, but right before we married, I found out I was pregnant, and he did not want to have, a child. So, and I was really terrified to go home to my very strict conservative parents who weren't really talking to me anyway, and say to them, well, now I'm pregnant. So he took me to a Planned Parenthood, and I allowed them to talk me into abortion. So that was really probably a pivotal thing for me, because after something like that happens, you really feel like, well, nothing I do matters now. There's no way up or out after this. So I wasn't married for long, maybe, I don't know, 2 years or so. He left to be with someone else, shocker. And I kind of just struggled and floundered until another guy saw a vulnerable girl, and he made his play, and I fell for that again. And he turned out to be a drug user, which I was very naive about things like that, and abusive, extremely abusive. So I was living in Quakertown at the time, and really just stuck in that, and believing that I could not get out of it, and not sure I even cared at some point, and pregnant again, being really severely beaten during the week of telling him that. And so once you've gone down that path, why not go down that path again? There was no spiritual influence in my life. I was far from God. And so I ended up back at Planned Parenthood. This time it was a very tragic situation. I hemorrhaged and ended up in the hospital, having to have emergency surgery, which is more common than you think. And things just spiraled into just darkness for me. And so, even it goes on, there's a lot more that happened, and, more pain, more suffering, all at my own hands. But eventually God sent someone who I'd actually gone to high school with, and she looked me up out of the blue, or I'm sure not out of the blue in God's plan. And she started talking to me and encouraging me and saying, this is not where you belong. And I just really couldn't explain to her how I really didn't think God would ever have a purpose for me at this point. Too much had happened. I had fallen too far from grace, and that was going to be the end for me. But she kept saying, "Come on, Wendy, you need to get away from this." And so I did. I finally left. I started going to church. That was really hard. Um, churches 30 years ago weren't too forgiving of a girl like me. So that was hard. And did a little bit of counseling. Didn't really tell too many facts about that because I really felt no one would be able to tolerate my past. And then I met my husband, and we started dating. And I am grateful that I chose to, tell him all before we married, so he knew what he was getting. Because I figured, I'm damaged goods, so it's fair that he should know that. And it took me a really long time, even though I had asked God's forgiveness, of course, and believed in the concept of forgiveness and grace from God. It took me a long time to actually feel that and accept that into my life. I became, we married, and I became pregnant right away, and that was hard and but great. And we had 3 kids very quickly, and you jump into family life. And when I do my story publicly, I just say I just literally took my whole past, put it in a box, and buried it. And no one ever heard about it again. No one knew. As we started, in a new church, no one knew anything about me. And that was kind of good, I thought. So years pass and your kids get older, and I was working as an insurance agent, and just praying that maybe God would show me what he'd have me to do in ministry, in the church, helping with kids. I don't know, women. What do you want me to do? I'll do anything you want. And so someone told me about Genesis, and they told me about the opportunity to be the director, and I blew it off. And then God started to talk to me, and I still didn't even see the connection between, my past and how I could be useful in the center. I just thought, well, I'm good at business, and maybe I'll go for it. So I did apply, and they brought me in here. And probably about 6 months in, I really started to see the purpose that God had. That women who were really frightened and not sure if they wanted to keep their pregnancy, I was somehow miraculously equipped to now speak to them and express things to them that not everybody could. And I can't tell you how really amazing that was for me to have such a horrible past be used for God. Was a great blessing to me. So, we've been, doing a lot of really great things here. We have a great team here, and we're medical now. So we're doing ultrasounds and pregnancy tests, and we're looking forward to adding additional services and just really, trying to make the biggest impact we possibly can in this community and the surrounding areas.
So when you look at like Corona just coming on us, like in I guess end of February, beginning of March, was there you guys never shut down, right? You guys continued to operate. What had to be changed? I guess just masks and gloves. Like, what did you guys do to continue for people to know that you were open and for it to everything to continue? How'd you guys do that?
Well, really, I consider Genesis to be an essential service. We provide formula and food and clothing and diapers, right? So we're essential. We work in conjunction with WIC and all these other referral services. And so they really count on us to be there.
Mm.
And also, as far as the protocol, we did this social distancing, of course. We did, after each client left, we did um, a wipe down of that area, spraying, of course. Masks were used by our medical personnel.
Right.
The people speaking to them, um, and we stayed 6 feet away, but it's really hard to talk about something as difficult as abortion with a mask
Yeah.
on. So I didn't do that, although, I made sure that I was well and, that we were good when we came to work. But we did temperatures, we took temperatures, all of that. So we never closed. And while I was trying to make a decision about that, that's when Planned Parenthood at the beginning of Corona came out and said, well, we're not closing no matter what. Even if we're ordered to close, we won't close
Mm.
because, providing abortion is an essential service. Well, I'd have to disagree
Mhm.
that it's not a service that anybody should be providing. So it kind of, you know, spurred me on to say, we're never closing the door. We will stay here and we will fight against that message of abortion, no matter what. So we have remained open every single day.
Have you seen a decline or uptick in patients? Has it been steady, or what can you tell me about that?
um, it's been up
Mm.
real high, lots of people coming in. Oh, we didn't know you were open. Thank God you're here. And we've been able to really help new moms with babies. Also, I think this week was the first week we didn't have an ultrasound.
Wow.
So every single week there's been at least one, if not two, ultrasounds um, for women who, were we don't do your ultrasound is usually between 7 and 9 weeks along. So, we're confirming that there's a viable pregnancy. We're really trying to show them, what is being formed in the womb, and that is their child, and it is a part of them. And we have some good information to share with them and show them. So that has not stopped. And while Planned Parenthood plays on the fact that certainly this is not the time to have um, a baby with Corona and all this social unrest,
Mm.
they're playing on that, and particularly within the Black community, unfortunately. So we're here to say, no, don't buy into that lie. Don't buy into that story. You can do this. We want to empower you towards life and motherhood.
Yeah, that word empower. That's the word that they twist around, and all of a sudden,
Exactly.
empowerment means giving up your right to have a kid. I mean, it's the exact opposite of
Yep.
what it should be. And I see that too, especially with communities of color, is that they they make them seem like they're a victim when they're supposed to be helping them come out of that and realize that they are equal in the sight of God. They keep them down, and this is one of the big ways they do
Oh
that.
yeah.
Healthcare always is used as a way to persuade the masses to do whatever government says. And so I'm glad you guys stayed open. If
Yep.
if Parenthood considers themselves essential, then you guys are definitely essential. So since you've been through it, what are the things that Planned Parenthood say they do besides abortions that they try to smokescreen everything else with? Like, I know they say that, like, they'll do like an annual pap smear for a woman, and other services like that. Is that statistically where a lot of women go for their OBGYN care, or is that just a smokescreen that they use?
No, I don't really think that they're getting a lot of
Right.
that as a service. I think dispensing of birth control,
Hmm.
maybe that. Um, STD testing,
Got you.
maybe that. Maybe a lot of that.
Yeah.
Um, and again, that's a service we're actually looking to provide here in the future. We've just sent in our state applications, um, and that to us, some may say that's off mission, and I say no, because it gives us the opportunity to address a very important issue and problem in our community. And
Sure.
these women are sometimes STD positive and pregnant. So it gives us the chance in the moment of apprehension and crisis for them to be able to sit down, build a trust between them, and be able to offer Christ, right?
Sure.
So that's really something we're looking forward to. But um, yeah, I mean, Planned Parenthood is. I mean, how do you come up with anything but negative things to say? They're just, I mean, they're handing, chemical abortion out like it's candy. There are women at home alone in their bathrooms, self-aborting every week, every day. Um, and I just got the 2020 state abortion statistics, which would blow your mind, of how many women every day in this state alone are doing that. So it's horrible, and the long-term mental side effects of that for women, I just we can't even quantify that, because there's all these women that will have had to go through this process and see this small little tiny baby
Yeah.
in their bathroom. Like, I hate to be graphic, but it's just so awful, and they're alone in that. And there's no way to ever erase that kind of a memory. And what's that doing to our young women?
Yeah.
I just It's tragic.
Yeah. I feel like, especially with what's going on in society. One of the reasons why your son's National Guard group got called up to King of Prussia to protect Philly is because of all of the unrest, because of Black lives mattering and Hispanic lives, all lives mattering. And it's so interesting that we'll make it this political issue, and it's important. It should be addressed when there's mismanagement of police and things like that. But if we're not going to, care for the lives of the unborn that are the most vulnerable, just as we care for elderly people and things like that, where have we gone as a society?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I was thinking about with especially with the idea of them having chemical abortions and being able to do it on their own, we've replaced sobriety with convenience. Like the even if it was completely, like, I hate to say this as a pastor, but play devil's advocate for a second, and let's say, okay, abortion's completely fine. You're still taking a life, and that's just something you should take very seriously, regardless of how.
Mhm.
And to give someone, hey, you can do this on your own, is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's taken away the somber feeling that it should be. I remember even President Bill Clinton saying that, abortion, even though he wanted to make it legal, he said it should be rare, and it should be done
Yeah.
in certain places, like not yourself. It
Yeah.
just, we've
Yeah.
made
So
this
think
thing.
how many
Yeah.
young women, 15 and 16, they're going to be allowed to be given the pill without parental consent.
Wow.
And they're going to be able to go home and do that alone. And then if it doesn't work properly, which does happen in some cases, are they going to have the courage to come forward and say, I need to go to the hospital?
Right.
And that is a reality, because I live that reality. I live the reality of hemorrhaging and having to be rushed to a hospital for an
Right.
emergency D&C because they said it was done incorrectly. And
Right.
that is still happening today, whether or not they want to admit to that or not. And they tend to not report those situations. And in my case, I went to a hospital. I didn't go back to Planned Parenthood and tell them, here's
Right.
what's happening to me, because I didn't want to go there. Um, and so, it didn't get reported. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just horrible that, of course, we're in Pottstown, and Philly has a lot of pregnancy centers, because we're trying to come up to opposition of where the Planned Parenthoods are, and they're there for a reason. They're there because that's where they can make all the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does come down to a numbers game with them. And it is interesting, if defiance is supposed to be what sometimes liberals characterize conservative Christians to be. Planned Parenthood said they're staying open no matter what, in defiance, possibly. And so,
Sure.
it's interesting. You can see that part being played as well. So I know you spoke to me earlier about the now there's a chance for you to reach more Hispanic women as well. And so, how has Genesis pivoted that way? So you have someone who actually speaks Spanish on staff now, right?
Correct.
Okay. Who? What's her name again?
Giovanna Cleese.
Okay, great. And so she is a she's a counselor with the ladies. Does she do anything else out at Genesis?
Yeah, she's pretty much capable of a lot of things here.
Okay,
She can do some administrative work. She
good,
does. She helps me with development.
awesome.
Um, she does outreach with churches. She's speaking to the women, obviously in Spanish that we can't talk to. She interprets for ultrasounds, which has
Mm,
happened several times. And she's just it seems like, and she's confirmed this with me, that when the word gets out amongst them, there's a place we can go, that
right,
we found a place, and they're willing to help us, and there's someone there that can talk to us. The word gets around, and I it feels like they all know each other.
sure,
All of them that come here now, in some fashion, they know each other. And who knew when we thought, oh, this would be a good idea. Let's bring in someone that can, speak Spanish, and um, in case we run across that more, we'll be able to do it. But as soon as she got here, it blew up immediately.
sure. Well, yeah, especially the barrier of language. You'll see the same people at the same spots because that's the places they know that they can speak their native tongue, and someone's going to understand them. So God sovereignly puts people in certain pockets, and it
Yep.
seems to have really helped you guys. So you
Yep.
mentioned that the women's clinic wants to do other things, and so what are, like, for you as the executive director, what's your vision? Like, what's the next step for Genesis?
Um, yeah, we have two thought processes right now, which of course, Corona and the current issues have kind of pulled that back a little bit. But um, the STD testing, several other pregnancy centers are doing that already.
Hmm,
And I'm in a group of 14 women who all are directors of other centers. So we're able to share ideas, and speak to each other about these things. So I do think it's important. I do think it's a really great service we'll be able to offer to the women of this and the surrounding communities. And also, too, we are considering a second location.
awesome.
I did do a survey trip just last week to the Phoenixville area,
Good.
driving around the high school, driving around different spots, just trying to get a feel for, if we pull the trigger on that in the future, where would be the best location? What are the costs of rentals out there? So just starting to really think about that now that things are calming down
Sure.
a
That's
little
awesome.
bit. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm really praying about that, because I want it to be clear that
Mhm.
this is what God wants. We originated in Phoenixville. And so is it time to come back and have a 3 day a week remote location where we just do it 3 days a week, but we offer ultrasound, pregnancy testing, the STD, and the counseling. So we won't probably be able to completely duplicate the original location, but we'll see what God has and what He brings to us, um, and maybe that's in our future.
Yeah, I really think the name change is really great, and I think some people may not have understood why. And it wasn't to hide anything or make it more acceptable. It's because now you guys are offering more than just counseling for pregnancy. You're going to be there for the entire time with them, and adding STDs, and now you're going to be there to help women with other crises besides just being pregnant. When someone finds out that they may actually have an STD, it's just as scary, and it's just as something they don't want to tell their parents about, or
Yep.
some, and it's a stigma as well. And so to be there for people, and the idea that you would have that already set when you move to a second location, you have immediate credibility than just being a place that's counseling. It's way more than that. It's being there for the
Yeah.
in a holistic way, which is awesome. So,
Right.
well, yep, thanks for your time. I'm gonna stop the recording, and I'm gonna say bye to Wendy. So everybody watching this Friday, you can say bye to Wendy. Bye, Wendy. All right.
I